Before we walk these ancient stones together, before we listen to the silence that falls over Jerusalem in late October, I want to invite you to join our journey. If you feel moved by what you hear, if these words touch something deep within you, please consider subscribing to this channel. We explore sacred moments, quiet revelations, and the spaces where history breathes into eternity. Your subscription helps us continue sharing these meditative journeys. Now let us enter the stillness. The light changes differently here at the edge of October, when autumn fully claims Jerusalem. The sun descends earlier now, casting long amber fingers across limestone walls that have stood for millennia. The air carries a particular coolness, a whisper of winter approaching from distant mountains, though the day still holds warmth in its fading hours. This is the hour when trombones and trumpets fall silent at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, when the last ceremonial notes fade into the ancient corridors, when the rhythm of pilgrimage slows and the city exhales. Walk with me through these narrowing streets, where shadows pool like spilled wine between buildings pressed close together, their stones remembering every footstep, every prayer, every tear shed across 2,000 years. The merchants are closing their stalls now, pulling down metal shutters that scrape and clang, folding away the colorful scarves and olive wood crosses, the ceramic plates painted with blue Jerusalem scenes. The smell of cardamom coffee still lingers from the afternoon, mixing with incense smoke that drifts from doorways, with the dusty sweetness of old stone warmed and now cooling. Listen. The city is changing its voice. Where hours ago there were calls to prayer mingling with church bells, where there were tour guides speaking a dozen languages, where there were children laughing and vendors calling out their wares, now there is a different music. The music of ending day. The music of approaching silence. Somewhere a door closes softly. Somewhere footsteps echo and fade. Somewhere a single bird calls from a rooftop, then stops as if remembering the solemnity of this place. The cobblestones beneath your feet are worn smooth by countless pilgrims, their surfaces uneven, ancient, holding the weight of history in every depression and rise. Some of these stones were laid centuries ago, fitted together by hands long returned to dust, and yet they remain patient, bearing witness. As you walk, you feel how the city slopes and climbs, how it refuses to be flat or simple, how it insists on complexity, on layers, on depth. This is a place built vertically through time, where Byzantine foundations support Ottoman walls, where Roman columns frame medieval arches, where every era has left its mark and none can be fully separated from the others. The air tastes of stone dust and something indefinable, something that might be called holiness if holiness had a flavor. It is the accumulated presence of millions who have come seeking, yearning, believing. Their prayers have soaked into these walls like rain into thirsty earth. Their tears have moistened this dust. Their hopes have carved invisible channels through the air itself, pathways of longing that remain even when the pilgrims have departed. Now you approach the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, that great sprawling structure of domes and chapels, of competing traditions and shared reverence. The facade rises before you, weathered stone the color of old honey, windows dark or glowing faintly with interior candles. The great wooden doors stand open still, though fewer people pass through them now. The courtyard before the entrance holds a dozen lingering souls, some seated on the steps, some standing in quiet contemplation, some preparing to enter or having just emerged, carrying on their faces that particular expression of those who have touched something beyond explanation. The sound of the trumpets has ceased. Just an hour ago they rang out in ceremonial proclamation, their brass voices announcing prayers, marking transitions in the liturgical day, calling the faithful to attention. But now they are silent, resting in their appointed places, and the silence they leave behind feels enormous, as if it has physical weight, as if it presses gently against your chest and asks you to breathe more slowly. This is the silence of endings and beginnings, the silence of thresholds. This is when day gives way to evening, when the sacred routines pause before beginning again tomorrow, when the soul finds space to hear its own voice beneath the noise of the world. You step across the threshold into the church itself, and the temperature drops immediately. The ancient stone holds coolness even through summer, and now in late October it exhales a gentle chill that raises goosebumps on your arms. Your eyes take a moment to adjust to the dimness, lit as it is by candles and oil lamps, by shafts of dying daylight filtering through high windows, by the soft electric lights that modern times have added but which seem apologetic, insufficient for this space that demands fire and flame. The smell of incense is stronger here, layered and complex. You can distinguish frankincense and myrrh, those ancient offerings, those gifts fit for kings. The smoke rises in lazy curls, catching the light, creating shifting veils between the earthly and the eternal. Your footsteps echo on ancient marble, on slabs of stone worn concave by millions of previous footfalls. To your right, the stone of anointing, that rectangular slab of reddish limestone where tradition holds that the body of Christ was prepared for burial, gleams softly with oil and lamplight. Pilgrims have left flowers here, and the petals are wilting now, their edges brown, their perfume fading, but their offering remains valid, accepted by silence itself. A few people kneel beside the stone, touching it with reverent hands, pressing their foreheads against its cool surface, their lips moving in wordless prayer. You do not disturb them. This is their moment with eternity, their conversation with mystery. You move deeper into the church, navigating the semi-darkness, aware of columns rising into shadow, of chapels branching off in unexpected directions, of stairs climbing and descending to other levels of devotion. The rotunda opens before you, that circular space beneath the great dome where the edicule stands, the ornate structure built around and over what tradition identifies as the tomb of Christ. Even in the growing darkness, you can see its elaborate facade, the candles burning in their alcoves, the faithful queuing patiently for their turn to enter that small interior chamber where death was conquered, where the impossible became possible, where sorrow was transformed into inexplicable joy. The queue moves slowly, reverently. No one rushes here. Time operates differently in this space, stretching and condensing, becoming malleable. Minutes feel like hours and hours like minutes. You watch pilgrims emerge from the edicule, their faces marked by something ineffable, some mixture of awe and peace and lingering disbelief that they have stood in that place, that they have touched those walls. Above, the dome rises into darkness, its structure a marvel of engineering and faith, rebuilt after fire, restored after earthquake, maintained by the delicate balance of different Christian communities who share custody of this holiest of sites. The dome seems to capture and hold the prayers that rise toward it, creating a reservoir of devotion that spills back down. As blessing. You find a place to sit, a stone ledge worn smooth, and you simply breathe. This is a moment for stillness, for letting the weight of this place settle into your bones. Around you, the church continues its evening transformation. More candles are being lit, their flames multiplying, creating constellations of light in the darkness. Somewhere a priest chants in a language ancient and strange, his voice echoing through unseen corridors. Somewhere incense thurifers swing, their chains clinking softly, their smoke offerings rising. This church contains within its walls the traditional sites of Christ's crucifixion and burial. Just beyond where you sit, the rock of Golgotha rises, that outcropping where tradition places 3 crosses, where divinity and humanity met in the ultimate act of love and sacrifice. You can climb stairs worn treacherous by pilgrims' feet to stand above it, to peer through glass at the actual stone beneath the altars and the adornments. But for now you remain where you are, feeling how everything in this building orientates itself around that central mystery, that death that refused to be final, that grave that could not hold its occupant. The Gospels tell the story simply, almost starkly. A man condemned, led to execution, nailed to wood, lifted between earth and sky. Darkness at noon. The moment of surrender. The pierced side. Then the hasty burial before Sabbath, the body wrapped in linen, the tomb sealed with stone. Then women coming at dawn with spices, finding everything changed, encountering the impossible, running to tell others what they had seen, what they had heard, what they could not fully comprehend but knew with absolute certainty was true. Here, in this place, those events are not merely remembered. They are present. They pulse beneath the surface of the ordinary. The stone knows. The air knows. The darkness and the light know. This is ground zero of a faith that changed the world, the epicenter from which hope radiated outward in all directions, crossing deserts and mountains, sailing across seas, until it reached every corner of the earth. You close your eyes and allow yourself to imagine that first Easter morning. The confusion. The fear. The women approaching in pre-dawn darkness, carrying their burial spices, their hearts heavy with grief, their minds unable to accept that the one they loved was truly gone. The shock of finding the stone rolled away. The terror and wonder of the angelic message. The empty tomb, death's door standing open, its victory undone. And then later, the risen Christ appearing, showing his wounds as proof, speaking peace, transforming sorrow into a joy so intense it could barely be contained by human flesh. All of this happened here or very near here on this contested ground in this ancient city. The specifics may be debated, the exact locations questioned, but the essential truth remains, solid as the stone walls surrounding you. Something happened here that changed everything. Something broke through from eternity into time. Something proved that love is stronger than death, that grace overcomes judgment, that the last word belongs not to darkness but to light. The church is quieter now. The queue for the edicule has shortened. The evening prayers of various communities echo from different chapels, sometimes overlapping, creating an unintentional polyphony that feels right somehow, as if heaven itself is multivocal, as if the divine ear hears and welcomes all sincere offerings regardless of language or liturgical tradition. You rise and walk slowly around the rotunda, pausing before different chapels, observing different expressions of devotion. Here, Ethiopian monks tend their altar with careful precision. There, Armenian priests in black vestments move through ancient choreography. Elsewhere, Greek Orthodox chanting rises and falls in Byzantine patterns that seem to defy Western music theory. Each tradition guards its space zealously, yes, but each also contributes to the whole, adding their thread to the tapestry, their voice to the chorus. Outside, through the open doors, you can see that full darkness has arrived. The sky visible above the courtyard is deep purple fading to black, pricked with early stars. The city lights are coming on, golden and silver, modern electricity alongside ancient oil lamps. Jerusalem transforms again, becoming its night self, mysterious and slightly dangerous, beautiful in the way that all old cities are beautiful after dark when shadows multiply and imagination fills the unseen spaces. But you are not ready to leave yet. Something holds you here in this dim interior, among these flickering candles and these murmured prayers. Perhaps it is the sense that this place operates outside normal time, that entering here is a kind of time travel, a way of standing simultaneously in the present moment and in that crucial past when everything pivoted, when history split into before and after. You make your way toward the Chapel of Adam, that lower chamber traditionally held to be directly beneath Golgotha, where legend claims the first man was buried, where the blood of Christ dripped down through a crack in the rock to touch Adam's skull, symbolically connecting the first death to the death that conquered death. The theology is medieval, perhaps fanciful, but it speaks to something deep in the human heart, this desire for connections, for meanings that span time, for patterns that reveal divine purpose. The chapel is small, dark, lit by a few candles. The rock is visible here, the bare stone of the hill, cracked as the legends describe, ancient beyond measure. You reach out and touch it, feeling its coolness, its roughness, its absolute solidity. This stone was here before Christ walked these streets. This stone will be here long after your bones have returned to dust. It is a witness, silent and patient, holding its secrets, offering only its presence. A moment of stillness settles over you, deeper than before. This is a threshold moment, a pause between heartbeats, a space where prayer becomes possible even for those who struggle with prayer. You do not need words here. The place itself speaks. The stone itself prays. You simply add your presence to all the presence that has accumulated across centuries. You add your longing to the great tide of human longing that has washed against these walls. Time passes. You do not measure it. There is nothing to measure against. When you finally stir, returning to yourself, you feel both refreshed and exhausted, as if you have traveled a great distance while remaining motionless. You climb back up to the main level, emerging near the stone of anointing again. A few pilgrims remain, but they are scattered now, each in their own world of devotion. A cleaning crew moves quietly through the spaces, sweeping, straightening, preparing the church for tomorrow's crowds. Even here, the ordinary mingles with the sacred. Even here, life continues in its practical necessities. You step outside into the courtyard, and the cool evening air strikes your face like a blessing. You breathe deeply, tasting the night, feeling your body remember itself after the timeless interior. The courtyard is empty now except for a few lingering souls like yourself, reluctant to leave, savoring these final moments. Above, the sky is fully dark, stars bright in the desert air, that clear Middle Eastern darkness that makes you understand why ancient peoples saw gods and heroes in the constellations, why they told stories written in light across the void. The dome of the church rises against those stars, a human answer to the cosmic questions, an assertion of meaning in the face of infinity. You walk slowly across the courtyard, your footsteps echoing on the worn stones. The city around the church is quiet now, shops shuttered, streets emptying, residents settling into their evening routines. Somewhere a television plays, its sound muted and distant. Somewhere children are being put to bed, their protests fading into sleep. Somewhere couples sit together in lamplit rooms, discussing the day, planning tomorrow, living their lives in the shadow of eternal things. You exit through the main doors and turn left, following the street as it curves away from the church. The Via Dolorosa is nearly empty now, that sorrowful way where tradition traces Christ's path to crucifixion. During the day it is crowded with pilgrims walking the stations, with tour guides explaining the history, with vendors selling devotional items. But now it is returned to itself, A narrow street like any other, steep and ancient, cobbled and mysterious. You walk slowly, not following any particular route, simply allowing the city to guide you. The streets of the old city are a labyrinth, a maze that defies logical navigation. You can walk in circles here, passing the same corner 3 times without realizing it, or you can strike out in what you think is one direction and emerge somewhere entirely unexpected. The city has its own geometry, its own logic, learned over centuries of siege and survival, of building and rebuilding, of accommodating too many people in too little space. The stone walls on either side of you rise high, creating a canyon of shadow. Overhead, stars appear in the ribbon of visible sky, and occasionally you pass beneath an arch where a building spans the street, connecting one side to the other, creating a tunnel-like passage where your footsteps echo louder. Cats watch from doorways, their eyes reflecting lamplight, their bodies still and alert. They are the eternal residents here, these cats, belonging to no one and everyone, fed by shopkeepers and residents, living their lives in parallel to the human drama. Somewhere ahead you hear singing. Not the formal chanting of liturgy, but informal voices raised in song, perhaps a family gathering, perhaps friends sharing a meal. The melody is Middle Eastern, quarter tones and complicated rhythms, beautiful and strange to Western ears. It floats through the darkness, a reminder that people live here, that this is not a museum but a living city, a place where children are born and old people die, where love blossoms and hearts break, where the ordinary and the sacred occupy the same space without contradiction. You emerge suddenly into a small square, open to the sky, where a few benches surround a dry fountain. The fountain must flow during other seasons, but now it is silent, a decorative pool holding darkness. You sit on one of the benches, grateful for the rest, your legs tired from walking, your mind full of impressions. From here you can see several directions at once. To your left, an alley descends steeply toward what you think is the Jewish quarter. To your right, another passage climbs toward the Muslim quarter. Straight ahead, the street continues, leading eventually to one of the gates, though you are not sure which one. The city disorients deliberately, refusing to be easily known, demanding that visitors surrender control and accept mystery. The silence here is different from the silence in the church. That was a silence full of presence, heavy with devotion and history. This is a simpler silence, the everyday quiet of a city at rest, people behind walls living their private lives, leaving the streets to night and to wanderers like yourself. You think about the trumpets that fell silent hours ago, those ceremonial instruments announcing prayers and transitions. There is something profound about silence following sound, about the space that opens when music stops. It is in that space that we hear ourselves, our own hearts beating, our own breath moving in and out. It is in that space that we remember our mortality, our smallness in the face of eternity, and paradoxically, our immense significance as beings capable of wonder, of worship, of love. The October air carries a hint of smoke now, someone's cooking fire or perhaps a burning of garden refuse. It mingles with the ever-present dust, with the smell of ancient stone, with something that might be night-blooming jasmine from a hidden courtyard. Jerusalem smells different at night, all its day scents fading to reveal subtler perfumes, the city's secret face revealed only to those who linger after the crowds disperse. You rise and continue walking, following the street as it climbs now, your breath coming harder with the exertion. The stones beneath your feet are even more uneven here, some of them loose, all of them treacherous. You walk carefully, placing each foot with intention, aware that a turned ankle in these deserted passages would be a serious problem. The street opens onto the ramparts, that walkway atop the city walls where tourists walk during the day, taking photographs, marveling at the views. But now it is closed, gated, the access points locked. You can see through the gate, though, can see the pathway extending into darkness, can see beyond it to the modern city glowing with electric light, high-rises and street lamps and the flowing rivers of traffic on distant roads. The contrast is stark. Here, in the old city, you exist in a kind of historical amber, preserved, ancient, moving at the pace of foot traffic and donkey carts. There, beyond the walls, the 21st century roars along, oblivious to the weight of history, concerned with its own pressing matters. Both realities are true. Both exist simultaneously. The miracle is that the old has survived it all, that it persists despite modernity's pressure, that people still choose to live in these cramped quarters, climbing these steep streets, maintaining these ancient ways. You turn away from the ramparts and make your way back into the narrow passages. You are moving now in what you hope is the general direction of the Jaffa Gate, though you are not entirely certain. The streets twist and turn, and you have lost your sense of direction. But there is something liberating about being lost in Jerusalem, about surrendering to the city's labyrinthine logic, about trusting that eventually you will emerge somewhere, that the city will not keep you forever. Another square opens before you, this one larger, with a few shops still dimly lit, their proprietors sitting outside in plastic chairs, smoking, talking quietly. They glance at you as you pass but make no effort to engage. This is their evening, their relaxation after the day's work, their time to be simply human rather than vendors, to enjoy the cool air and the companionship of neighbors. A church bell rings somewhere, marking the hour. You count the strikes. 9 times. 9 o'clock. The evening is still young by Jerusalem standards, though the tourist areas are largely deserted. In other parts of the city, restaurants and cafes are full, people are walking and shopping, life continues its evening rhythms. But here, in the heart of the old city, in these religious quarters, night comes earlier and silence settles more completely. You find yourself back at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre without quite intending to. The city has brought you in a circle, or perhaps you unconsciously guided yourself back, drawn by the gravity of that place. The courtyard is empty now, the great doors closed, locked for the night. A few lights burn in upper windows, the monks and priests who live here settling into their evening routines, their prayers, their preparations for tomorrow's liturgies. You stand in the empty courtyard, looking up at the church's facade. In darkness it seems even older, more mysterious, like something that has always been here and always will be. The stone absorbs the starlight and gives nothing back, keeping its secrets, maintaining its vigil. This is the hour when the city belongs to God alone, when human activity recedes and something else fills the spaces, some presence older and deeper than the religions that have built their structures here. This is the Jerusalem beneath Jerusalem, the city of David and Solomon, of prophets and kings, of countless ordinary people who lived and died here across millennia, whose names are forgotten but whose presence remains, absorbed into the stones, mixed with the dust, part of the eternal breath of this place. A small prayer forms in your heart, wordless, more of a feeling than a thought. It is a prayer of gratitude for this day, for the privilege of walking these streets, of breathing this air, of touching these stones. It is a prayer of acknowledgement, recognizing the mystery you cannot solve, the questions you cannot answer, the truth that exists beyond your understanding. It is a prayer of surrender, releasing control, accepting that you do not need to comprehend everything, that faith is not the same as certainty, that wonder is its own form of knowing. The moment stretches, becomes elastic, holds you in its gentle grip. Then it releases, and you are simply standing in a courtyard at night, tired and ready to find your way back to your lodging, to food and rest and the ordinary comforts of the body. You navigate the streets more confidently now, recognizing landmarks, remembering turns. The city is still quiet, still wrapped in its evening peace. You pass a group of young men, students perhaps, talking animatedly in Hebrew, their voices bright with youth and possibility. You pass an old woman sitting in a doorway, her head covered, her hands busy with some handwork, her lips moving in what might be prayer or might be song. You pass a stray dog, thin and wary, keeping its distance, surviving on scraps and the occasional kindness of strangers. Finally, you emerge through one of the gates, the ancient stones giving way to the modern streets beyond. The transition is jarring, like surfacing from deep water, like waking from a dream. Cars pass, their headlights harsh after the gentle lamplight of the old city. People walk briskly, checking their phones, focused on their destinations. Cafes overflow with customers, music playing, conversations loud and cheerful. You stand for a moment at the threshold, one foot in each world, feeling the pull of both. Behind you, the old city recedes into darkness and mystery. Ahead, the modern world beckons with its lights and noise and relentless forward motion. You carry both within you now, the ancient and the contemporary, the sacred and the secular, the silence and the sound. As you make your way through the evening streets, your mind returns again and again to the church, to that moment when the trumpets fell silent, to that space of profound quiet when the city held its breath. That silence, you realize, was not empty. It was full, brimming with presence, with the accumulated prayers of centuries, with the weight of events that changed history, with the whisper of grace that speaks loudest when all other sounds have ceased. This is what Jerusalem teaches if we are willing to learn. That silence is not absence but presence. That emptiness can be fullness. That endings are also beginnings. That death itself is not final when love is involved, when grace intervenes, when the divine reaches down to touch the human and transforms everything it encounters. Late October in Jerusalem. The trumpets silent at the Holy Sepulchre. The streets grown still. The light fading. The stars emerging. And in the spaces between, in the pauses and the quiet places, something eternal breathes, something that has always been and always will be, something that cannot be destroyed by time or circumstance, something that waits patiently for those who have ears to hear and hearts to understand. You carry this with you as you walk, this gift of silence, this benediction of stillness. Tomorrow the trumpets will sound again, the crowds will return, the city will resume its complicated dance of competing claims and shared history. But tonight, for these hours of darkness, Jerusalem belongs to silence, to the stars, to the prayers that rise like incense into the desert sky, to the hope that persists despite everything, to the love that conquers death, to the grace that makes all things new. This is the Jerusalem that matters most, not the political entity, not the contested geography, but the spiritual reality, the place where heaven and earth meet, where time and eternity intersect, where the human heart can touch the divine and be forever changed by that contact. You find your lodging finally, climb the stairs to your room, unlock the door and step inside. The modern amenities greet you, electric lights and running water, a bed with clean sheets, a window looking out over the city. You are grateful for these comforts, these practical necessities that make life livable. But you are more grateful for what you carry inside now, for the silence that still echoes in your soul, for the presence you encountered in that ancient church, for the mystery that touched you and marked you and changed you in ways you do not yet fully understand. Before you sleep, you step to the window and look out. The old city is visible from here, a dark mass against the lit modern surroundings, crowned by domes and spires, ancient and enduring. Somewhere in that darkness, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre stands watch, guarding its secrets, maintaining its vigil, waiting for tomorrow's pilgrims, for the next soul that needs to touch those stones, to stand in that space where death was defeated, where hope proved stronger than despair, where love wrote its final word and that word was life. The night holds you gently as you stand there, the cool air on your face, the distant sounds of the city a muted backdrop to your thoughts. You think about all the pilgrims who have stood where you stood today, all the seekers who have walked those corridors, all the hearts that have opened in that sacred space. You are one among millions, a single note in a chorus that spans centuries, and yet your note matters, your presence counts, your prayer adds to the great accumulation of longing and love that fills that place and overflows it and spills out into the world. This is the gift of Jerusalem in late October, when the trumpets fall silent and the streets grow still. This is the blessing of sacred ground and holy moments. This is the promise that silence keeps, that stillness offers, that darkness provides. In the quiet, we hear the voice we could not hear before. In the stillness, we feel the presence we overlooked in the noise. In the darkness, we see the light that was there all along, waiting patiently for our eyes to adjust, for our hearts to open, for our souls to recognize home. Sleep comes easily tonight, deep and dreamless, a blessed unconsciousness that restores and renews. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges and discoveries, its own moments of grace and frustration. But tonight you rest in the shelter of silence, wrapped in the peace that passes understanding, held by the love that will not let you go. And somewhere in the darkness, in that ancient church at the heart of the ancient city, candles continue burning, prayers continue rising, and the silence continues speaking its wordless wisdom to all who have ears to hear. The trumpets will sound again, yes, but for now, for these precious hours, Jerusalem rests in the deep silence of late October, a city suspended between earth and heaven, between time and eternity, between the troubled present and the promised future, waiting, hoping, believing that the light will come again, that morning will break, that love will have the final word, as it always has, as it always will, world without end. If this journey through the silent streets of Jerusalem at twilight has touched your soul, if you felt the weight of those ancient stones and the whisper of that sacred silence, I warmly invite you to subscribe to this channel. We continue to explore these moments where eternity breaks into time, where the ordinary becomes extraordinary, where silence speaks louder than words. Your subscription supports our work and ensures we can keep sharing these meditative journeys through the world's most sacred spaces. Join our community of seekers, of listeners, of those who dare to stand in the silence and hear what it has to say. Thank you for walking with me through Jerusalem tonight. Until we meet again in another place where heaven touches earth, may you carry this silence within you, may it refresh your spirit, may it remind you that beneath all the noise of our world, something eternal waits, something beautiful, something true.